We'll forgo our duel for the time being. Unfortunately, I doubt we will have another chance to fight. But I will leave you with this bit of advice. Or rather, I will foretell your doom. If you think this man your friend, then know this. When you regard one another as brother, and this man's ambition crumbles, it is your destiny to face your death. You cannot escape your fate!
In the world of Berserk, there are many different kinds of monsters. Not only blood-sucking demons and apostles, but also humans. Humans who choose to betray all that is sacred, sacrifice everyone, friend or foe, for personal gain. However, sometimes you will find a drop of honor in an endless ocean of sin. And it's even more unlikely that you will find this honorable soul in the body of an apostle. Today we'll be covering Nosferatu Zodd, his origins, and his eventual crucial part in Guts' journey. Zodd was a legendary swordsman who for hundreds of years would wander from battlefield to battlefield, war to war, killing countless soldiers, and becoming a myth synonymous with war itself. When eventually Zodd would join the Tudor Empire during the 100-Year War against Midland. Guts has so far proven to be unmatched in battle. As a mercenary of the Band of the Hawk, an ambitious group of warriors fighting for the highest bidder, led by Griffith, Guts has even managed to reach the rank of captain of the Hawk's raiders. When during one battle, as the Hawks were trying to besiege and capture an enemy fortress, an enemy soldier is single-handedly holding Guts and his raiders back from sieging the inner citadel. Juro then exclaims one word, Zodd. He has heard rumors that Nosferatu Zodd himself is part of the enemy army. For centuries he spread dread in the hearts of warriors. It's even believed that even after Zodd is killed in battle, he always comes back, thus earning the name of Nosferatu, the Immortal One. We see Guts trying to free himself from his comrades. They are trying to stop him from going inside the citadel alone. Guts has sent 50 of his men inside, but for an hour now, there has been no sign of life. How can one man, one single man, have the Band of the Hawk's raiders stuck like nails in a wall? Guts is interrupted by a wounded raider who exits the citadel in a horrible state. The warrior Dilos tells Captain Guts that Nosferatu Zodd is responsible for his demise. In a single move, as if it was already decided, Guts stands up and prepares to head inside the citadel. At this point, it's personal. One man shouldn't be feared like this. Guts is determined to prove that it takes one warrior to defeat another. He will be fighting alone. Guts walks into the citadel. It's a massacre. We see the bodies of the raiders scattered around as if a typhoon had passed by and torn them apart. In the distance, Guts sees Zodd standing in front of a pile of corpses. His sword adorned more dead warriors. He wears no armor, as if to taunt the rest of the soldiers for needing to cover themselves up for battle. Guts wastes no time. He lunges at Zodd, but before he can strike, Zodd swings faster than him, hitting his sword and pushing him back, while the bodies that lay on his sword were thrown off like they were weightless. Zodd is clearly not human. For the first time, Guts comes across a monster several times stronger than himself. Zodd praises Guts for parrying his strike and swings at him again. Guts blocks the first strike and dodges the second. The sheer strength of the swing obliterates the pillar that Guts was pushed up against. The monstrous warrior doesn't let up. Guts must deflect strike after strike from a much tougher opponent than normal. Zodd's stamina is insane. Nosferatu Zodd is impressed that Guts has managed to survive this long. In over 50 years, Zodd has never come across another warrior that has been able to withstand him. Guts recognizes that Zodd is by far the strongest opponent that he has ever had, way stronger than any human, even Griffith, who beat Guts with a single strike. If it wasn't for the massive blade that Guts is using, he would be dead. The sword is thick enough to withstand multiple strikes from Zodd without breaking. Their blades, at least, are equal. This breathes some newfound confidence into Guts, as he goes from defense to taking an offensive stance. Zodd, as an experienced warrior, recognizes Guts' gamble. He is planning on placing all of his bets on the next strike. Zodd intentionally takes the bait. He wants to see if Guts can achieve what he set out to do. As if having fun, Zodd accepts the challenge and swings at Guts in sync with him. The swords clash. Guts' bet pays off. He wasn't aiming for Zodd. He was aiming for his sword. Guts' blade snaps Zodd's blade in half. The strike is not over. After going through the sword, Guts also strikes Zodd in the shoulder. We see that Zodd gets furious. Or is it excited? He grabs Guts' blade and shows his surprise that Guts managed to defeat him in this trade of blows. For the first time in Zodd's long and blood-filled life, someone has managed to injure him this deeply. In these past 300 years of slaughter, Guts has been the only one to wound him in this way. For the first time, Zodd is feeling the need for self-preservation that only a worthy opponent can offer him. Zodd then transforms into his true apostle form. He gets larger than before. Massive horns grow from his head, resembling a carnivorous bison monster. Guts has never seen anything like this before. His first encounter with a demon is with Nosferatu Zodd himself. Guts describes him as terror itself. The apostle is ecstatic. It's been so long since he has felt his blood boil for a fight. A warrior who can face him. He wants to see more of Guts' strength. He has been chasing that feeling for centuries. Zodd wastes no time and lunges at Guts, striking him and knocking him into a nearby stone pillar. Guts cannot fight as if fighting a human anymore. He is getting pummeled. Even after dodging one of the apostle's strikes and swinging at the beast, Guts' sword stands no chance against Zodd's horns. Zodd hits Guts away. Guts is on the floor, barely conscious. Zodd is disappointed in Guts' performance. He was hoping for a little more. However, he acknowledges that for a human, Guts is one hell of a warrior, and true warriors should deserve and desire no mercy. But before Guts meets his death, he is saved by the rest of the Band of the Hawk, who shoot a volley of arrows at Zodd. But he remains unfazed. Instead, he is furious that someone would interrupt his fight with Guts. He then charges at the warriors, killing many of them, using claws, horns, and teeth. This is no longer an honorable warrior. This is a monster through and through, as if saying, if you won't respect the rules of battle, then neither shall I. Griffith uses the chaos to approach Guts and attempts to rescue him. However, Zodd notices them. As he towers over them, he reminds Guts that their duel is still ongoing. Guts' heart is still beating. Fight. Fight me until you're torn to pieces. Zodd calls Guts to satisfy his hunger for a real duel. For Zodd, if you cannot best your opponent, you must die by their hand. For fleeing is worse than death. It's the death of one's own self, their worth as a duelist. Zodd attacks the pair trying to escape. However, Guts is no longer fighting alone. Him and Griffith split, attacking from both sides of Zodd. Guts slices his neck, and Griffith manages to sever Zodd's left arm. The apostle is gravely wounded. It appears that our crew has won this one. However, the beast is still not done. Zodd hits Griffith with his tail, knocking him on one of the stone pillars and rendering him unconscious. Zodd then grabs his own severed arm and clubs Guts with it, knocking him to the ground, before pushing the arm against his own wound. The arm attaches itself back to his torso, as if it was never sliced off. This monster is incredibly durable. As Guts is on the ground, Zodd reaches for the body of Griffith, but before he can kill him, he notices something hanging from the unconscious warrior's neck, the egg of the king. Zodd is shaken to the core. How can it be? A cub like him with a crimson bayonet. Zodd cracks a smile as he understands what is about to occur, punching upwards and making a hole in the ceiling. The apostle turns to Guts and tells him that their fight is not finished. It's simply put on hold. However, Zodd is unsure if they will ever get the opportunity to have their fight. From warrior to warrior, Zodd gives Guts a warning. or a prophecy. If you can be said to be a true friend of this man, then take heed. When his ambition collapses, death will pay you a visit, a death you can never escape. Zodd then flies out of the citadel and vanishes into the stormy night. This is the first time that Zodd and Guts come toe-to-toe. Both are strong warriors. While Guts will use any means necessary to win a fight, it appears that Zodd prefers a more traditional approach to fighting, a one-on-one duel from which only the greatest warrior will come out alive. Although different, it's safe to assume that when it comes to fighting, both Zodd and Guts want to prove that they are the strongest. Zodd would eventually join Griffith. In chapter 128, we see Nosferatu Zodd battle against the Hawk of Light in a metaphysical battle. After losing a horn and being bested by the Hawk, Zodd would eventually join the ranks of Griffith in chapter 175, where the Immortal finally kneels for Griffith. Many chapters later, Guts and the crew eventually reach Fritanis. They are in search of a ship that will take them to Skellig, in the hopes that Casca's broken mind can once again be restored. However, the city is getting attacked by bloodthirsty monsters, from tiger-like beasts that tower over humans to crocodile monsters that can even wield spears. It's a night raid. The citizens of Fritanis get slaughtered. We see soldiers being invaded by the Dakas, the personal monstrous creations of Emperor Ganishka. The monsters flood the city. While the crew is fighting these demons, Guts is preoccupied fighting an army of Makaras, titanic sea elephant demons that are destroying the port. Guts, using the Berserker armor, slaughters one beast after the other in swift fashion, slicing through them like a feral dog. Guts is at this point way past the time where he used to struggle against one big monster. Now Guts is a monster himself that spreads dread in the heart of all demons. Guts slaughters the beasts, however he is not unscathed. He is deeply wounded. However, the night is still young. Before he can catch his breath, a massive ship appears from the smoke, a massive Kushan Gallias. On it floats Daiba, a magic user of the Kushan army. Guts keeps swinging at the magician, but he keeps dodging. However, he is knocked out of the sky by Isidro, who uses one of his mini firecrackers to wound him. Desperate, the old man performs a summoning spell, saying the name Kundalini. The water itself takes the form of a massive snake that does Daiba's bidding, the strongest of his Pishaka Gana. Guts cannot even slice it, as it's simply water. Guts eventually slays the beast as the true body of the monster lays vulnerable in its chest. The water is simply manifesting itself around the small and frail snake. Shirky performs a spell that ignites the tip of the Dragon Slayer in flames. Guts then lunges and penetrates the beast's body, killing the true form and obliterating the Pishaka Gana. However, Guts' struggle finds no end on this day. Soldiers can see a giant approaching from the dense smoke that engulfs the city. It's a giant misty being, Emperor Ganishka the Great. The fog demon says that he is impressed that Guts has been able to survive and slay so many of his monsters. He even says that Guts bears the scent of a connection to beings from the spirit world. The apostle wonders if Guts is a follower of his archenemy, the Hawk of Light. Ganishka then attacks Guts and Serpico by striking them with the lightning, but Serpico, using his sylph sword, deflects the attack, saving them. However, this was but one strike. There's many more to come. Guts dodges the second lightning strike, but he can't keep doing it forever. When lightning hits the Berserker armor, it shocks both Guts and Shirky, knocking Guts to the ground, almost unconscious. Ganishka then strikes Guts again, hoping to keep him down for good. However, Guts uses the Dragon Slayer as a lightning rod, taking most of the energy instead of him, leaving him with only minor injuries. The Fog Demon is impressed at Guts' abilities, even recognizing him as a captain of the Band of the Hawk. Guts laughs at the idea that he will be fighting for Griffith. He is a purebred human, down to the core, not one of the sacrilegious beasts of darkness that mistake themselves for angels. Ganishka, seeing that Guts is not one of his enemies, tries to convince him to become an ally, to become a follower. As most apostles and demons are now following the Hawk, the Fog Demon tries to persuade Guts to fight under him in order to get his revenge. However, Guts' answer is to be expected. He declines the deal. He doesn't care for a feud between monsters. Enemies it is. The apostle is about to attack Guts when he hears something from the depths of the town. It's Zodd, cleaving and slaughtering demons in his apostle form. The sky is flooded with more demons. Emperor Ganishka recognizes the monsters as followers of the Hawk of Light. The apostles swarm the Fog Demon, taking his attention away from Guts. Guts suddenly hears a familiar roar. We see Nosferatu Zodd sitting on a tower, like an animated stone gargoyle. He flies like a bullet, heading for Ganishka, but is struck with lightning. That, however, doesn't stop him as he heads for the demon's body. Zodd goes straight through the apostle. It appears that the body of the apostle is made of pure mist, no flesh to speak of. After multiple failed attempts to wound Ganishka and multiple lightning strikes to his body, Zodd finally falls from the sky and onto Guts, dragging him into the water below. In chapter 277, we see Zodd meeting Sonia, the medium of the reformed Band of the Hawk. The girl tells him that he will soon be forced to make a choice, to again battle the sword that once cut his flesh, or make it his own weapon, beast or warrior. The same choice will also be made by Zodd's counterpart. Zodd realizes that Guts is with him underwater. He swiftly flies back out of the sea with Guts still holding onto his back. Guts is ready to fight Zodd with all he has. Seeing that Zodd's neck is vulnerable, he is about to slice him dead, when the fury of Ganishka's attacks forces them to reconsider their fight. Guts complains that they are fighting a cloud that they cannot even harm. Zodd agrees that although he's a great warrior, no weapon can strike mist. Zodd tries to get Guts off of him by attempting to strike his head on the main mast of one of the ships, but Guts dodges. The Black Swordsman has different plans, pressing his massive sword on the neck of Zodd, for once it's Guts who has the upper hand between them. However, their fight must wait. For now, it's time to take down the Mist Emperor Ganishka. Zodd remembers what Sonia told him and realizes that she was referring to this exact moment. Zodd tells Guts to put his blade away and demands that Guts shows him he can hack that cloud to pieces. Shirky notices that Ganishka's ethereal body is between the cloud's eyebrows, telepathically telling Guts. Zodd flies Guts through the attacks of Ganishka and into his forehead, landing a massive strike and emerging through the other side. However, Zodd gets once again paralyzed by the lightning, falling to the ground. Far away from the battle, we see the true human form of Ganishka, suffering great harm. He's enraged. The great god emperor appeared more human, more helpless than his strength allows. The fog retreats, so do the monsters that were assaulting the city. Zodd is standing over a passed out Guts. The immortal demands that Guts stands up and fights. Guts grabs the Dragon Slayer, and even after being wounded and burned to a crisp, stands up once more, never backing away from a fight, especially with one of Griffith's dogs. Zodd can see that the swordsman is not fit to fight anymore. The fight will be rescheduled to a time when they can both rip each other apart, as two warriors deserve. Equal ground, a battle of pure skill. Even when a demon tells Zodd that Guts should be sacrificed because he bears the brand, Zodd grabs its neck. They are here on orders to wage war, to thrash the cushioned beasts. Before Zodd can fly away, Guts asks him if Griffith will also be coming. Nosferatu Zodd warns Guts that if he plans on fighting Griffith when he rides in town, then things change. Zodd will not hesitate to end Guts' life if it meant protecting Griffith. If Guts wants to fight, then no matter how wounded the Black Swordsman is, Zodd will indulge him in the bloodshed he's craving. However, before they can fight, Serpico intervenes. You couldn't care less about some feud between monsters, right? Guts turns to face his crew. Casca looks afraid. It's not worth it to fight this fight anymore. Guts tells Zodd that he's also done. Zodd flies away. Guts collapses from his wounds. While the crew is tending to Guts, he sees a white-haired horseman standing on a hill far away. Griffith. Guts' eyes close as he loses consciousness. As it turns out, even demons can be guided by a human compass. Zodd, although the right hand of the Hawk of Light, is not simply a demon. As a warrior, he is also led by a feeling of honor, absent in most of the other apostles that Guts must face during his travels. He would not enjoy killing Guts if he's not in a fighting state, when other demons would shred him to pieces. Zodd wants to savor the fight with his great swordsman. Guts owes Zodd a real fight, a fight in which Zodd will feel the fear of death. Nosferatu Zodd sees war like an art, and not the hellish bloodbath that it is. For 3 centuries, he hasn't been able to find an opponent capable of wounding him. When that warrior finally comes around, Zodd wants to prove that he is the strongest, no questions asked, to Guts, but also to himself. For what makes a warrior is not the familiar feeling of victory, but the rare feeling of fear and admiration when face to face with your equal. For only after defeating your equal can you call yourself stronger. Thank you for watching my video essay on Nosferatu Zodd. See you next time.